वन इज की पुलिस का काम है पकड़ के पीटना, एंड सेकंड इज पुलिस तो हमेशा लेट ही आएगी, एंड थर्ड इज की पुलिस किसी काम की नहीं है।
Police as a department is pretty new to me. I haven't been to a police station once in my entire life. I haven't been there. So and
Oh,
I
you
have
should.
known.
It's not that bad. You should go once.
Yeah, I mean, I'm planning to, but I haven't done that before yet, and I'm pretty unaware of the entire thing. So the only exposure that I have of the police is what I've gotten through the cinemas and movies and everything. So that's the only thing that I am aware of. So I was very excited to have this podcast with you, and thank you so much for being on this podcast. And yeah, so please meet
It's my pleasure.
Anupriya.
Thank you for inviting me.
Great. Please meet Anupriya. She is my co-host. And Anupriya, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, so I'm Anupriya. I studied psychology and political science. I currently work in research in conflict and psychology. So this is especially interesting to me because obviously you're pretty much at the forefront of so much of this theoretical work that we constantly think about. I'm also an artist, so I'm a musician and a DJ, and I really
Wow.
look to women from different walks of life, and especially women who are doing something that stereotypically women aren't considered good enough to do or bold enough to do. So I'm so excited to speak to you today.
Same here, same here. It's really nice to speak to people who are doing really diverse things in life. Otherwise, I've come from surroundings where people are just very mainstream, that engineering, medical, and that's all. Nothing much more to life.
Yeah, but you've clearly taken a very, you've taken a so-called mainstream path and you've made it so fascinating for us. So that's why, like, it's going to be, yeah, more different than other maybe videos or podcasts that you've done, where probably the questions are always, "Acha, आपने crack कैसे किया exam? Tips दीजिए." Because they're not going to ask you about any tips here. We're going to focus.
Exactly. It's all just about preparation.
Yeah, no, this is a lot more about your process, your experiences, and those kind of things.
Great. Let me make a quick introduction of Riti. So she is a government servant, and she is from the 2018 batch of IPS, and she is an assault commander, and she is serving at Telangana right now, if I'm not wrong. So, by the way, I'm not sure what assault commander is and what their job is. So, what do you think it is?
See, actually, so in Telangana cadre, all the IPS officers who are recruited, they are initially given a mandatory posting into the Greyhounds. Now, Greyhounds is the anti-Naxal force of Telangana and Andhra. So it originated in undivided Andhra to deal with the Naxal issue. So that's what the Greyhounds is. And once we joined, so in September 2019, we completed our training at the Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel National Police Academy. And after that, we started training under Greyhounds. And after the training was done, then we went on for operation duties. And the post where we are recruited into the Greyhounds is called Assault Commander. So, as in, like, our basic job is to just, go along with the active units which are there on the ground and to patrol the areas, and combing operations are there. So, whatever you must have heard of guerrilla warfare and anti-guerrilla warfare, right? So that's what they train us in, so that once we are in our districts as SPs, and then we have information with regards to any Naxal issue or something, then we know how to deal with it, and we know how to coordinate with the active teams which are there on the ground. What are the problems they face when they go into the jungles, and how to supervise and monitor their movements, how to make the most of their movement and of our manpower and resources. So that's the thing that we do.
So, of course, when you're in this job, there's so much information that you're exposed to that can be very triggering, that can be very gory. So, what is it
Hmm.
like for you emotionally to process all of this information? And do you ever, do you ever get nightmares about some of these issues? And even when you're just out with your friends or family, is there like a looming sense of doom or emergency somewhere?
No, no, see, not really. So, that's why the training at NPA, it's very, very rigorous and grueling, because their job is to make us as mentally strong as possible. right? So, for example, we do a lot of physically difficult stuff during the training. And all that physical stuff is not to make us strong physically, not to, build up muscles and body and all, nothing at all. Because every physical act that you do, it depends on how strong you are mentally. Whether you think you can run a 16-kilometer run or not does not depend on how strong you are. It depends on how strong you are here. So throughout the training, they make us mentally very strong. And another thing is that we start disassociating ourselves from these value judgments of good or bad, right and wrong, because through our training we get exposed to so many different situations that we start thinking it's all about time. Right, you can't really pick up and say this is right, this is wrong, this is good, this is bad. And if I start going into that value judgment, if I start attaching my emotions to the job that I'm doing, I'll become very incapable and inefficient. And that will be wrong on my part, because if I've been recruited into the service, it's my duty to do justice to it. And I can do justice to it only if I'm impartial and I see my job.
I won't start going on that tangent ki acha, oh my god, this is so gory, what the family must be thinking, they must be thinking. If it's a rape case, then it is so wrong, it's bad. Because the moment I start going into that field, I will not be doing the job that I'm supposed to do. My job is to complete the investigation, catch the accused, and bring them to justice. That's what I'm supposed to do. So it does take a lot of effort, because initially you do remain disturbed, because it's not easy, right? We were also, like, before joining the service, we were also very common people, and there used to be outbursts and all that. But after coming here, I realized that no, if you have to get something done, you have to set your mind straight, and you have to separate your emotions from your profession.
I think the part where you said that whether you would run for 16 kilometers or not, a lot of it also depends on how whether you are mentally prepared to do that. I think I can totally relate to that. That brings me to the question of what the entire process looks like, and uh, could you please give me a bird's eye view on the profession, and how your normal day or week looks like?
Do you want to know about the profession or the training? Or
The
like
profession. Profession.
Okay, see. So the profession, see, for example, if I'll tell you a little bit in detail, in the police in India, recruitment is done at 4 levels. Okay, constables, SIs, DSPs, and IPS officers. So my job as an IPS officer is not that much of a policeman as it is of a manager. My job is to manage the manpower and the resources that we have at hand to ensure that policing is done efficiently. Right. For example, if I'm the ASP, DSP, or if I'm the SP of a district, my job is to ensure that all the police stations, however, thinly resourced they are, they should be able to do their jobs well. The petitioners are coming, they should be given a good hearing. The FIRs should be registered on time. The warrants must be executed. The investigation must keep going on. The documentation must be done properly. If somebody is out on bail, then there should be a continuous check on them. And so my job is just to ensure that all these things are being done properly. So, like, there's something called law and order issues in policing, then there's traditional policing, and then there's preventive policing. So law and order mostly includes bandobast and ensures that as an SP of a district, you should know what is going on in the district. You should have information about all the stakeholders, so that if anything wrong happens, suppose ki, there is some land dispute going on somewhere, and it's been brimming over for the last 2-3 years, and now the participants are getting a little agitated, so that might result into a further law and order issue. My job is to nip it in the bud, to ensure that I figure out some solution, counsel the parties or negotiate with them, try to bring some solution to their issues, so that they don't take law into their own hands. So law and order means that knowing everything there is about your district. That's why they have a lot of informers. We have a whole network of people who keep telling us, so that before something happens, we should know. Otherwise, it's no use, right? If it's already happened, it's no use knowing about it later. Next is traditional policing. Traditional policing deals with how you deal with the conventional crimes. Suppose the crime has happened, then you have to investigate it, do the documentation, submit the charge sheets to the court on time, and try to get the accused, gathering all the evidence and everything. That's traditional policing. Now, third is preventive policing. Preventive, so mostly in states, in the South Indian states, for example, Telangana, the crime rate has decreased, and we have shifted on to preventive policing, as in there is a very rigorous force on patrolling, so that the areas have been decreased a lot, because after bifurcation, Telangana had around 10 districts. Now it has 33. So
Okay.
they are dividing the districts smaller and smaller, so that patrolling is very efficient. So that people can see the police is everywhere. So that even if somebody has something in mind, they don't really try to do something. So, and increasing CCTV cameras, vigilance, so that we have an eye on everything. So these three are there: law and order, traditional policing, and preventive policing. Now, as an IPS officer, my job is to monitor all these three. I have to ensure my resources are divided equally between all these three. If
Mhm.
not equally, then according to the circumstances. For example, I know that a religious function is going to happen. There is some festival. Maybe there's a clash of, festivals of two different communities. So I'll be on tenterhooks. My focus will not be traditional policing or preventive policing. My focus will only be law and order. I'll ensure that I have talked to all the community elders. I have taken them on my side and convinced them, no matter what issue you have, don't take law into your hands. Come to me directly. You do a lot of counseling and negotiation. So as an SP, like as an IPS, your profession is that you have to manage all these three different departments.
Like you said, you do a lot of counseling. I think the perception that I am coming from is that if I bring an issue to a police officer, there's not a lot of chance of it getting enough attention, or it getting any notice. So that's where I am coming from. What I'm very sure of is that you all must be aware of that. My question is, how do you build that trust in the citizens, and ensure that if there's any issue that they have, or if if they notice that any crime is going to happen, then they inform that to you, and then you can act upon it. So how do you do the trust building part?
See, trust building is all about, trying and trying and trying. You can't do it in a day. You have to keep trying. You have to make yourself very approachable. For example, just one simple thing: you have to keep your phone by your side all the time. For example, during my district training, my phone used to ring at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes I would talk at night and forget all about it in the morning because I would just be so exhausted. It was almost like that. So it's just that you have to tell people that yes, you're accessible, and you do that by, you can't do it, as I said, you can't do it in a day. For example, every day there will be a few people coming into you. Now if you start listening to them, if you start guiding them ki ha, because sometimes they'll have a problem but they won't know what to do about it. They don't know if they really want to file a case, because sometimes even if they want to file a case, they don't know how long the process is going to be. Is it going to justify, is it going to satisfy them or not? So sometimes you have to guide them. Now, if you do it, for a week or two, then those people, they take back this image of yours कि अच्छा मैडम सुन रही हैं या साहब
Mhm.
सुन रहे हैं, है ना, और सुन के वो बताएंगे. Now it spreads by word of mouth. ठीक है. Even people in your station, all your subordinates, they will spread this कि हाँ भाई अगर genuine problem है तो साहब सुन रहे हैं, मैडम सुन रही हैं. So it just spreads, it takes time. You need a lot of patience to do it. For example, in my 3 months, 1 month, people were a little aloof because they didn't know what kind of a person I was, what kind of an officer I'll be, whether I'll, pay them a lot of attention, whether I'll be willing to go out of my way to help them. They didn't know that. So you have to give hearing to all the people who come to you and just trust, and it just automatically, it spreads amongst the people.
Great. What I am seeing is that it's coming from the top. So is there any system?
See, if you start doing it as an IPS officer, all your subordinates, for example, all your ACPs, DCPs, DSPs, and even your SIs, down to your constable level, if they start seeing that you're doing this, somehow it will take time, definitely, but somehow or the other they will also start taking the same approach.
Mhm.
Right, they
Okay.
will get a little in. You have to lead by example. You can't, कि नहीं मेरा तो 1 बजे का लंच हो गया, मैं जा रहा हूँ, आप लोग देख लेना, तो वो भी नहीं देखेंगे, right? They don't have any incentive. If the leader itself is not doing something, they won't do anything, right? So
Right.
I have to set an example. So the way I start listening to all the people, I tell my people as well, and I keep a check. I would always keep, I'll always ask the SIs कि हाँ, how many cases did you deal with today? What happened where? And what is the current situation going on? Did you follow it up? Did you talk to the parties later? What happened? What condition they are in? So I'll keep a check on it. It's not possible to keep a check on all the cases, but you do it randomly. So they know कि हाँ मेरा number कभी भी आ जाएगा. I should know what's going on with my case.
You mentioned all these psychological skills, right? Like counseling and negotiation, and that
Oh,
is something
yes.
that actually study. So I want to know, when you were training, first of all, how were you trained exactly in counseling and negotiation? Because I'm interested in the way that such education is disseminated in the services, one, and
Hmm.
two, being a woman in IPS, some people have negative stereotypes कि औरत कैसे करेगी. But when you mention these skills like counseling, which requires so much empathy, and all these things you mentioned, which are basically listening and empathy, there's another
Exactly.
stereotype that counselor, teacher तो हमेशा औरत होती है. वही
Hmm.
अच्छे से वो दिल लगा के सुनेंगी, and. So what is the gender stereotype, and what was the education like in these skills?
See, for example, in NPA, we were taught about the importance of listening. Okay. And they just told us that the most important job you have to do as an officer is to listen. You have to listen to your subordinates. You have to listen to the petitioners coming in. You have to listen to your seniors and your political bosses. You have to keep your eyes and ears open all the time. All the time. Because see, even when you're counseling now, the most important part of counseling is to let the other person speak. Once they're able to vent out, once they're able to give everything out, only then will you be able to reach out to them, because they have it एकदम ऐसे पकड़ के रखते हैं. Once they have let it all out, only then whatever you are saying will make sense to them. Once they are not that angry anymore, once they are a little calm. So in NPA we used to be taught about this, that how important listening is, and they would carry out practical exercises. Okay, how much did you actually listen, and did you understand this or not? These were the finer nuances, reading between the lines and all of that. And the seniors at our academy, they would always keep telling their examples, how they would deal with petitioners if they're coming in. Now see, sometimes the things, Anna, like in policing, it's that the law tells us that we have to deal only with the criminal issues, right? Now there are a whole lot of civil issues which are actually a bigger source of problem for the people than the criminal issue. Now, in policing, if people come to me and they cite a civil issue, I am at full liberty to say कि sir, ये आपका civil matter है, आपको civil court जाना पड़ेगा. I can't do anything about it. My hands are tied. Now, this depends on the officer, right? Now, the officers that I learned from, they always told me कि ठीक है Riti, you might not be able to do something directly because the law forbids you to, but you can talk to people in other departments, and you can contact your friends here and there and try to get something done. Now, see, this will depend on officer to officer. Every officer might not be into counseling as much as I might be, because my ideas are different. Even though they train us, you have that individuality within you and that sense of identity. So you will end up doing things your way. So, for example, if I can compare with my batchmates, all of us were not into counseling, but like I was, because another reason why, because the area where I was in, there was a lot of domestic violence issues, a lot of drinking issues, elopement cases. Now, those are not cases where a criminal proceeding is actually going to help in the long run. It just won't, because I've seen it, I've tried it, it doesn't help. So I have to, keep listening to the people and keep talking to them. And because I saw that it actually helped them. So that's why, it depends on a lot of variables, how these counselings can happen.
This takes me to my next question, actually. I hope you don't mind, Ritvij.
No, no, no.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
Which is about crimes against women, when it comes to domestic violence, sexual abuse, and especially intimate partner violence,
Hmm.
that you just mentioned, that your district had a lot of such cases. And when
Hmm.
Ritvij said that there's a sense of like lack of trust, like if I go out at night and as a
Hmm.
DJ, we have some trainings about nightlife and women's safety. I've gone through those workshops of women DJs. It's very clear, like if something happens, will I go to the police? They will like, तुम रात को जाती हो, तुम छोटे कपड़े पहनती हो, तुम्हारा profession ऐसा है, etc. That's an occupational hazard. But the lack of trust that sometimes women have when they go through violence, especially sexual violence,
Huh.
uh, how do you tackle that and gain trust there?
See, like I told you, so for example, those cases would come to me and they were clear cases of domestic violence. I could see that they've been beaten up. And like for a moment, I would be in rage, but I would always know that my rage is of no use at all here. I have to do what I should do. So I would talk to them and ask them. And 97% of the cases, they would tell me that, Madam, मेरे को FIR नहीं करना, मैं कहीं जा नहीं सकती, मेरे को इसी मर्द के साथ रहना है, तो आप कुछ इनको समझा दीजिए, कुछ कीजिए. Now, in that case, if I end up filing an FIR, I would not be doing justice to that lady, because she would unnecessarily be dragged into the entire court proceedings without help from her maternal family, in-laws family, and her husband. She would just be left alone. And that, according to me, is doing something very bad, right? So I would try my best to counsel the guy, maybe a little bit of threatening कि next time किया तो bind over कर देंगे या case register कर देंगे, कुछ कर देंगे, तुम्हारे employment पे असर आएगा. Anything, saying anything which will prevent him from acting out like that. And then I would impose systems, like my patrolling parties would be very efficient. So I would keep a track of all these households, and मैं daily इनको patrolling पे भेजती थी. क्या इनके आप घर पे जाओगे, एक बार रात में इनको बाहर बुला के एक बार बात करोगे कि आज कैसा था, ठीक था, नहीं था, क्या प्रॉब्लम था, मॉर्निंग में मेरे को रिपोर्ट करोगे. तो इस तरह से for some time it decreased, है ना. See, now that I'm out of that place, now I don't know how it must be happening, because every senior that goes, they bring in their own things. Now, if I'm given a particular place for a longer period of time, I'll be able to institutionalize something. That is the objective with which any IPS officer goes. Ki wherever we go, we should be able to develop systems which will survive even if we are gone. Something good. So, but because my tenure was only for 3 months, and that too Corona hit at that time, I couldn't get time to build that up properly. But that's my objective for wherever I go next.
So when you said sustainability of the system, that is so true. Even in development practice, it's like if there's funding for 2-3 years or so and so $1 billion, you want to make sure that there is an exit strategy that it stays on. So when you have the next officer taking over, do you have a conversation with them? Do you tell them, oh, these are the systems
Yeah, completely.
my values and these are the major issues here, and how receptive are they to that, the handover?
See, again, it depends from person to person, right? For example, if you even consider a company, if a manager is going out, another one is coming in, it depends on what kind of a person he is. Maybe he'll be like, नहीं नहीं पुराना जो हो गया, मैं अपना कुछ करना चाहता हूँ, right? Because मेरे को अपना नाम करना है. Another person might be कि हाँ, whatever has happened till now, I should be able to support it, and उसके ऊपर मैं अपने कुछ tweaks कर सकता हूँ. It depends on the person, right? So officers are also like that. At the end of the day, they are people. So it depends on what kind of person they are. And we have a very proper system, like we keep all data, records, and accounts. And when we are handing over the charge, there is a thorough detailing done. This is the situation in the district right now. These are the problems in particular subdivisions. This is what is happening. This is the current scenario. This is how I have dealt with it. And these are the pros and cons I have suffered because of it. These are the ways I did not deal with it because these were the problems. So now it's up to you what you decide. Like that, you explain and you give the charge up. And similarly, when you are also going to the next area, you take all these, all this briefing from the person who's leaving that station.
I also wanted to, get an insider's view of what happens on a case. So, if you are comfortable, could you walk us through one of the toughest cases, toughest cases that you have had, and did you feel uncomfortable or vulnerable, and how did you go about solving that?
See, we hardly ever feel vulnerable in a case because, it's also because I haven't had that much of an experience. Maybe 10 years down the line, I might be dealing with some issue which would make me vulnerable or uncomfortable. That hasn't happened till yet. But the most difficult case I dealt with was the case of an elopement. Okay, so the thing is, there is an age limit, right? For example, if you've heard of the POXO law, it says that intercourse with somebody below 18 is a crime. Consent doesn't matter, right? Now, the problem would be that there would be elopement cases. The boy and the girl, with consensually, they would elope because they would want to get married. Now, if the girl is below 18, the girl's family would put a POXO case on the guy, a kidnapping case and a POXO case. And POXO cases are very, very, very severe. They're taken very seriously, right? Because the aim of the law was to punish people who are doing this without the consent. Now, the law has set it that below 18, consent doesn't matter. But generally, in these cases, the girls would give their consent, and it was always, mutually done. Now, this case was where a girl from a very reputed family, she left off with another guy who was not from a very good family, and obviously their parents were very much against each other. And they left off without a trace, like completely without a trace. No phone, no call, nothing at all. No CCTV. We could not catch them on any CCTV. And they were gone for almost a month. Now, the problem was there was only so much I could do because Corona hit at that time. We were completely busy in Bandobast, and Corona had its entirely different sort of policing. So we had to manage that, and there was this case. The problem was the parents of both the guy and the girl. They would keep coming every day with this hope in their eyes, aaj mil jayenge, aaj mil jayenge. Now, what do you tell them? You can't. There's nothing that you will say that's going to comfort them. So in Telangana, the good part is that we use a lot of technology, and they are actually very good at it. All the different departments. So we tried a lot. We tried to keep a track of all their whatever phone numbers which were available to us. If they got into contact with any of their neighbors, tracing back that call, or any internet activity, any Facebook login, or any social media login, we would keep a track just so that we could know, because the girl was below 18. It was a very serious case. So ultimately nothing happened. Suddenly one day they called up back at their house, and that's how we were able to trace them. And it almost took a month for them to call back, because they had run out of money and they were stuck in Corona. They had nowhere else to go. So then they came in. Now, once they came in again, I had to counsel them for almost around 5 hours. There was this huge line of petitioners waiting outside my office, but because this was a very serious case, I had to counsel them, because both of them were like, "हम suicide कर लेंगे, हमें साथ में रहना है." Now, like, it's almost like you have to talk in terms which they are going to understand. And they're like, what, 17, 18 years old, very high on emotions and not caring about the world, not being able to see the larger picture. So dealing with them for the next 5 hours, and again, following it up after a week and 2 weeks, that really took a toll on my energy.
Oh my God, how old were they? Were they 17?
17.
So
The
were
guy was 19 and the girl was 17.
Oh my God. So when you had them in, and for 5 hours you had to speak to them,
Hmm.
one is okay, handling that suicide threat, like that being a big thing. Then
Huh.
how many months from that time was the girl going to turn 18? Did you know at that?
Nee, so she was 17 only. Like, it was hardly another 6 months.
Okay. And for example, I mean, if these people are like so stuck to the bone and they're going to be running away together, I'm sure they're also probably engaging in sexual activity. So
Yeah,
in your
exactly. Now, that becomes a problem, because if the girl is below 18, the girl doesn't have to face any issue, but the boy's life is destroyed. It's completely destroyed. POXO cases are very seriously taken. The police does not have any discretion. The judiciary does not have any discretion. It doesn't matter that the girl gave her consent. So the boy's life actually turns out, it's very difficult to deal with them.
This sounds like a community mediation case, and mediation is something I am very passionate about studying. That's what I'm doing research in, and I'm applying to graduate schools to become a professional mediator.
Oh, that's
So
really
this is
nice.
exactly the kind of thing I see myself trying to resolve, because there's so many parties. Mummy, but ladki ke mummy papa, ladke ke both of them. So when I asked about sex, like yes, one is the POSCO side, another was like, is she aware of safe sex practices about pregnancy and those kind of things.
Exactly.
I
They
mean,
are
that's like
not.
one way.
They're just not.
Okay. So how did you finally get to resolve this? And did you have to take the help of, I mean, are mental health professionals ever consulted in such a situation? Because you're doing all the counseling. Does the state see the
Huh.
relevance of a community counselor in such a case?
Honey, so see, in Telangana, like, it depends state-wise, because police is a state subject. So in Telangana, they have this very good system of SHE teams and Bharosa Center. Now, Bharosa Center, they have almost a group of 15 to 20 psychologists, proper psychologists, therapists, psychiatrists, and all the domestic issue cases, because it's the Supreme Court guidelines also that you don't register an FIR in a domestic issue case unless at least once or twice mediation or counseling is done. So we all try, and even because the women keep saying that we don't want to register a case, we don't want, but something has to be done. And we can't counsel each and every case that's coming. So we send all of that to Bharosa centers. Now they go there, they have almost like, therapy sessions, like marital counseling sessions, and entire records are kept, and they keep a record of how, whether the couple is progressing, not progressing, and whether, ultimately a criminal case has to be filed or not. So that is something very good that's happening in Telangana. It started some time back, and now they're opening more and more centers so that it will be more accessible to people all across the state.
Wow. That is so good to know, because public
Yeah,
mental health is something that's being taken up, because how much can a police officer or an IPS officer do that's beyond their realm sometimes? And it's so great that you go out of
exactly.
your
Yeah.
way. your values and your system of your ideology allows you to go that far, but not everybody's would. And the sustainable part would be to
हाँ.
actually have a system that
I have a specialized center which would actually deal with this on a regular basis.
exactly. So what did you what finally happened after that 5 hours of counseling? How did you de-escalate and have all the family sit and be
Nothing at
calm?
that though. At that time, I could understand कि the boy is actually, obsessive. You know, like he was not exactly in love or whatever. Because at that age, I mean, it's not even. It's just an idea. They don't really understand what it is. He was more of obsessive. I need her, otherwise I'll kill myself, and she'll also die. His point was not just that कि I'll die. He was like कि मेरे बिना वो नहीं रह सकती, वो भी मर जाएगी. And when I talked to the girl alone, after an hour, she was like कि मेरे को अपनी चिंता नहीं है, but मेरे को उसकी चिंता है, वो मेरा बिना रह नहीं पाएगा, मैं तो ठीक है, मैं कोई बात नहीं. I mean, whole lot of a lot of nuisance actually, but kind of entertainment. It turned out to be a good story I could tell on the dinner table.
Wow.
Huh.
So
So like I
girls,
literally had to separate them. They were holding hands, and I was like, "Listen, I want to talk to you separately. First the girl, then the guy." And then ultimately, I told them. I used all sorts of emotional blackmail. What will happen to your parents, this and that. And I actually talked to the girl about whether it's safe or not. And when I talked to her, she was like, "कि मेरे friends ने बोला अगर एक बार बच्चा हो जाएगा तो parents मान जाएंगे." And it's like, wait a minute, hold on. Do you know what it means? Do you know what it means biologically? What it could do to your body? What are the risks involved? And she was like, "कि नहीं मेरे को नहीं पता." And I said, go back today, Google it, study it, come back to me tomorrow, and then I'll have a talk to you about it.
wow.
Because they have all these sorts of ideas. They don't have anybody to tell them, right? We don't
That
have sex education in schools. It's almost a taboo to talk about it. So they don't know where to talk about it, right? And they rely only on what their friends are telling them. And those friends are as bad as they themselves. So they don't know.
Yeah, this sounds like a Gumrah episode. This really dark show where they used to show such stories of, teenagers and young people getting to drugs or really toxic
Yeah.
relationships and how it would ruin their lives. But
And
wow,
also because they don't really have something like a career counseling, which like something that will be able to drive them, show them that they can build a future of themselves, by themselves, for themselves. They don't have this idea, I can become financially independent, I can do something, I can grow, I can have ambitions and dreams. There's nothing like that going on. Schools mostly we have like हाँ चल रहा है syllabus है complete है करना है, that's all. And that too in the good schools. In the not so good schools, even that is not done properly.
and
So it's very rare that people are driven, because generally you'll see, people who are driven will fall into these emotional troubles far less, because they'll be very clear sighted. कि यार मेरे को ये सब में नहीं पढ़ना. I have to build a career for myself, and then I can do whatever I want.
yeah.
And
And
especially for women, it's very important. For the girls, they have to be financially independent first, and then think about something else. Otherwise, you'll forever be asking for money, and that decreases your agency like nothing else.
I absolutely agree. That is so true. And you mentioned this girl is from a very well-to-do family, right? And yet, from like a community perspective, what well-to-do means, those values may not actually trickle down into progressive education or progressive
It
ideas of
doesn't.
what women should be doing.
It
At
doesn't.
max, it means कि तुम्हारे अच्छे घर में शादी होगी and हम decide करेंगे. But
Hmm.
of course, not a career or agency. Wow. Thank you for that very, very telling tale. And especially your role in this whole scenario is fascinating. So,
I mean, I had to try. The girl's mother, she was miserable. She was really miserable. It's very difficult to see the parents like that, because after no matter how bad they are, they have raised you. The least you can do is, at least be with them. Do what you want to do, but don't leave. Don't leave.
yeah,
That's all that I had in my head.
I agree. Absolutely. So our next question was, let's say you see this young boy who's absolutely obsessive, or you see someone who's actually done a crime. And sometimes Rituj and I were discussing crimes can sometimes be a little innocent. Like, if you really don't have money and you have to pocket someone and उसके तुमने 400 रुपए ले लिए, उसको इतना फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा. But तुम्हारे घर में बहुत फर्क पड़ेगा. So some crimes are innocent versus some criminals can actually be evil or like really be on like a long term path of like strategic destruction. So, what scope do you see for rehabilitative or restorative justice in our system? And are the authorities looking at cases contextually enough? I guess I'm sure you are, but in the system, is there any evaluation for like, okay, this is their context, this passes off as a crime, but not such a severe one. We can let this go this time, and this person needs counseling. Does the empathy ever extend to criminals as well in different cases?
See, rehabilitation comes at a stage once the police work is done. Right? Rehabilitation comes when, the matter is in the hands of the court and the prison. Generally, you will see once the people go to prison, then the rehabilitation process starts happening. Because, there they'll segregate, ki, these are people who did crimes of, maybe passion or maybe circumstances, not really those who actually wanted to, ki, cold-blooded murder, something like that. So, especially Telangana prisons, they have a whole lot of community-run programs. There'll be teachers coming from outside and teaching them different courses. There are a lot of facilities available. But I'll go back to that part where you said, if a person has stolen forehand, petty crimes, right? Now, those petty crimes, in my personal opinion, those crimes should not even reach the court stage, right? At the police station level only, you should be able to deal with it, maybe give warnings to the person, threaten the person, and, try keep an eye on them so that they don't do it again. Or maybe ask them, ki, what is their, problem? What do they want? What do they need? So generally, you'll see, police stations always have a very good liaising with the NGOs around. So generally, if we come across these people who maybe need a vocational course, maybe need some sort of livelihood or something, and if the NGOs are ready to help them, we become the middleman. We put them in contact with each other. And because we can't really demand the NGOs, कि नहीं आप इसको ले लो. All we can tell is कि ask them कि यार अगर इसका कुछ कर सकते हो तो कर लो. You'll be doing something good for the people. And they also, it becomes a thing of advertisement for them also. Ki, we help these many people resettle, we help so that they are also able to get fundings. So we always have this. So we keep a point, that because it doesn't make sense to register an FIR for petty crimes because FIR seems like, कि नहीं हर केस में होना चाहिए. It sets the criminal law in motion and everything. But you have to understand, once it's set in motion, both the parties will be involved in it for a very, very long time, and it's financially very draining. Justice in India is not cheap. It's very, very expensive. So you have to make sure that you're doing it only where the parties can actually, bear it. Otherwise, if there are heinous crimes, then there's no discretion, not at all. If it's a cognizable offense, you don't have a discretion. But for all the non-cognizable offenses, and where you think something can be done, even if you end up registering an FIR in a cognizable offense, and ki it was mistake, matlab, it can be pardoned. So maybe you can file a final report and get the matter out of the court. Now, if you do this, it also helps you build trust, and you can develop those people as your informers also. Because they'll know कि हाँ, the police people helped me when I needed them. मेरी गलती थी, but still उन्होंने मेरे को बचा लिया. So now you will develop a good source. Now, if anything wrong is happening in the community, that person will always inform you. कि मैडम ये यहाँ पे होने वाला है, यहाँ पे कुछ हो रहा है, ऐसे हो रहा है, वैसे हो रहा है. So that's how you deal with them. And especially, for example, there are, sometimes in heinous cases, for example, rape or domestic abuses, domestic violence, there'll be in the accused names, you will find names of even kids of the other family. Now, they are not at fault, right? I mean, किसी बच्चे का 10th है, किसी बच्चे का 12th है, कोई 7th standard में, 6th standard में है. How are they going to torture somebody? I mean, I don't get it. So you try to get those names out. You don't let them fall into this, the entire litigation process.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I think I deviated a little bit from the question that you originally asked.
The scope for rehabilitative justice, I think you're somewhat right that you try your best that not everything goes into an FIR. That's kind of can be resolved early on.
Because rehabilitation as an institutionalized process can be done only at the prison levels, which is being done in Telangana. I'm not very sure of the other states.
Okay. You mentioned the term political bosses a few times, and just you mentioned like political something. So I wanted to
I
ask.
said political bosses.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask, how do you sometimes come to decisions where there may be political interests on one hand and what's really the case and what's true and fair on the other? And
Hmm.
have you felt any bias from because you've been in this term, hence for this ruling party, and do you foresee any biases or interest seeping through in the future with other ruling parties?
See, I'll be better able to answer that question maybe 5 years down the line because till now I haven't had that much of an exposure, right? I haven't been on field for that long. But I'll tell you two things. One is what I've learned from my seniors: compromise where you can, and second, be ready for the consequences. Now, if you keep these two things, for example, if it's a petty issue, for example, एक accident का case हुआ है, one party really wants to register the FIR कि नहीं मेरे को FIR करना है, बंदे को कोर्ट में ले जाना है, मेरा फ्रैक्चर हुआ है. Now, for example, some political boss might tell on behalf of the other party कि यार पैसे वैसे लेके मैटर खत्म करो, बंदे को हॉस्पिटल ले जाएंगे, ट्रीटमेंट करा देंगे, सब करा देंगे, FIR नहीं चाहिए. Now, इसमें this person wants the FIR because he wants to settle the score. And now this person is ready कि भाई गलती हो गई है, मैं हॉस्पिटल का खर्चा भर दूंगा, कार रिपेयर करा दूंगा, सब करा दूंगा, मेरे को FIR में मत कराओ. Now, I don't see personally any problem in not registering an FIR here. ठीक है, definitely it's if it's a cognizable case, you have to register this and that, but you have to understand कि if you can compromise here, तो क्या होगा कि उनके दिमाग में भी आ जाए कि हाँ ऑफिसर को मैंने बोला था, उसने मेरी सुन ली. Now next time there is a law and order problem, you need him to tell the people to stay calm, to keep quiet and everything. So then you can tell him कि सर देखिए एक बार आप लोगों से बात कर लीजिए तो लोग शांत हो जाएंगे, लोग मान जाएंगे, because you need the influential people and political people are the most influential. So that is how you maintain a balance. And in case, the second thing I said, you should be ready for the consequences. For example, it's a very serious case and you're being pressurized कि नहीं FIR नहीं file होनी चाहिए. Then if your morals don't go for that decision, then do what you're supposed to do. File the FIR, but then be ready. And you might be transferred, you might be shunted off to some side post. Just be ready for that. And the only thing is don't take it on your heart, because ups and downs keep happening in the service. And because you have to understand that even those political bosses, they also have their क्या बोलते हैं मजबूरी होती है उनकी भी, you know because they are representatives of the people. कुछ issue होगा, people will jump to their houses कि आपके रहते ऐसे कैसे हो गया, ये हो गया, वो हो गया, आप कुछ नहीं कर पा रहे हैं, this and that. Now they will give you a call. At that time, generally what happens is their phones are always on speaker. So if you speak back, it will reflect very bad on them, because all their people are also listening to it, right? So that's why we are always told, be very polite on phone calls. Okay, don't promise anything, but at least be polite, listen to them and tell them कि हाँ सर आप भेज दीजिए, मैं देखती हूँ क्या possible है, I'll try my best. That's it. Because they also don't want to force you into a corner. They know कि हाँ ये जो लोग बोल रहे हैं उतना justified नहीं है, but ये उनका काम है कि वो तुम तक communicate करें, right? And many people think कि ये political bosses उनको कुछ समझ नहीं आता, कोई educational qualification नहीं है. Believe me, educational qualification is not the end of it. They deal with hundreds and thousands of people on a daily basis. They are much more wiser, much more intellectual than you can ever imagine. They understand people, they understand human behavior, and that, according to me, is the biggest knowledge that you need.
Exactly.
So you
Yeah,
have to be very, very respectful to them.
it's a
Don't
so
compromise where you can't.
yeah. The intuitive intelligence of, like, persuasion. If they're able to get all these votes, they know how to. They have a certain strategy and
Exactly.
intuition
Huh.
that your like 4 MBAs couldn't probably buy. There's
It
a
can't,
there's
it
a
can't.
process behind it. So fascinating. Yeah. You mentioned this compromise and being ready for the consequences. So sometimes the consequences could be gory, right? Like sometimes politics can be very, very rogue.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be so top down, and the morals that you mentioned, that there are cases where children of politicians do some really morbid things in their power high, or there's a Jessica case, or there's so many cases of shootings and accidents.
Hmm.
uh, and I'm sure maybe you won't be one of those people who let this go. Your morals are pretty
Hmm.
strong. And till now, thankfully, you may have not encountered it, but maybe one day you will. So that's a very big responsibility to shoulder. That's a very big awareness to have. कि I know मेरे morals क्या हैं. I'm not the kinds who can be easily bought off. And जब समय आएगा तब maybe this can blow up. This can become a huge deal. This can be a make or break in my own career in so many ways. So
Hmm.
that's a very big piece of
And
maybe.
see, it's as big as you make it, right? If you don't hype it in your head, it won't be that big.
Right.
You
Wow.
just tell yourself, ki,
Mental
"ठीक है,
strength you have. So much motivation for us on a Friday
no, no,
morning.
no, not motivation. It's out of laziness. Okay, I'm essentially a very lazy person. So all that you were saying, na, ki it's a very great responsibility, this and that. I'll have to think a lot if I go down that line. I
Yeah.
don't want to waste my energy down there. I would rather prefer sleeping. So I would just not make that big a deal about it. And also because we have our batchmates always, you have your support system. If you have to end up dealing with those consequences, you're not alone. Right. So you have to count on your support system. And fortunately, I've been very lucky with that till now. So that's why it won't be so bad. I mean, no matter how bad it is, you will survive like that.
So, I would like to know how you make tough decisions where both the options that you have are not good, probably
Mhm.
bad. Um, do you have to sometimes cross moral boundaries, or might not have to do the right thing to prioritize the greater good? How do you think about
See, I'll
such
tell you one
situation?
thing. Ethical dilemma is when you have to choose between two wrongs, right? Otherwise, it's not a dilemma. You know both the things are wrong, but you still have to choose one. Now, in those situations, it generally becomes stressful because you just don't have the time to think through so much. You will act on your instinct, and that's where your real character will show. Because you're under a lot of stress, you don't have time, you have to take decision right now and implement it.
Mhm.
So you don't really get to think a lot. So you just have a few foundation principles in your head. Like, for example, mine is compromise where you can and be ready for the consequences. Now, I don't have to think more than that. As I initially said, Keep, for me, there's nothing like right or wrong, good or bad. There's this one book that I read and it really changed how I perceive things. So I don't go into the entire value judgment.
Can
I
you
will
mention
just be like, sorry,
can you mention the name of that book?
Difficulty of Being Good by Gurcharan Das.
Okay. Okay.
It's very, very, very good. It was almost life changing. So, as you said, Ki, once you're faced with these decisions, you do something which is very basic to your character. You can't go into entire thinking कि अच्छा ये करने से ये होगा, ये करने से ये होगा. You just don't have the time.
Mhm.
So even if you are sacrificing your, maybe moral values, it's because deep down you probably don't believe them. You were having them only so that, you could have a social standing. If you're
Okay,
sacrificing something, it means you didn't really believe in that.
fair,
And whatever
great.
you choose at that time is actually what you're made up of.
And mm, like you said, there are advices that you get from your senior officers. So I'm sure you must also be having a bunch of opinions of your own that might not be the popular opinion. So do you have any unpopular opinions that other people in the industry might not have?
Actually, ever since my college only, I've been told that I make very unpopular decisions. And I've always been somehow very proud of it because I don't back down. If something needs to be done, it needs to be done. So, there's this thing, ki suno sabki, karo apni. You should be respectful to your elders. You should listen to what they have to say because they are also talking from experience. But you do what you feel is right because if your heart is not in it,
Mhm.
it doesn't really give you results.
Do you have any common myths about um, policing system, or not you, other people, people out of the system? Do you think people generally have any myths around the system which are not true?
हाँ, वन इज कि पुलिस का काम है पकड़ के पीटना एंड सेकंड इज पुलिस तो हमेशा लेट ही आएगी एंड थर्ड इज कि पुलिस किसी काम की नहीं है तो बट ऑल आई वुड वांट टू टेल इज कि you have absolutely no idea how meagerly we are blessed with the resources and the manpower. We are really spread out very thin and we keep trying our best. And we just, need to have a little patience because, see, policing initially evolved out of a colonial mindset. It
Mhm.
was institutionalized by the British after the 1857 revolts to keep the revolts always suppressed so that people don't, start reacting. So, police was supposed to be that body which would suppress the people. Now, after independence, we have had to change that behavior, that sort of work culture. That's going to take time. It has changed a lot, but it's still going to take a little time. So,
Mhm.
ऐसा नहीं है that we are always late. It's that we try, but definitely, if we are coming after a crime has happened, that means ki either the intelligence was not good, ki haan, we did not get the information ki acha, haan, maybe some dispute is going on and some murder might happen, or it might be because generally the crimes are of passion, right? Matlab because of rage, because of hatred, because of jealousy, property dispute, something. So those are not predictable. Obviously, murder होगा उसके बाद ही हमें पता चलेगा. They are sudden. People don't go advertising कि हाँ आज murder होने वाला है या कुछ होने वाला है. And police हमेशा पकड़ के पीटती नहीं है because I mean times have changed. There's a lot of scrutiny all of us are under, and that does not bring results. किसी को पीटने से कोई result मिलता नहीं है. So we've stopped doing that. So you don't have to believe in it anymore.
I have I don't know if that's a myth or an unpopular opinion, but the place where I'm coming from is that the examination system that you have, it's really tough, and I'm very sure that you all prepare a lot for it. The thing is, I think I'm not sure whether it's the best way to select IPS officers. So if you first of all, do you think it's the right way to go about it? And if you think it's not, then and if you were to build a system to select IPS officers and help them grow, how would that system be if you were to build it from the ground up?
See, the thing is, first of all, my idea would be कि only those people should come into the IPS who actually want to be there. Some people come just because उनके rank के according मिल गया. Some people come because of parental pressure. Whatever the reason is. See, I don't have any alternative which the UPSC has currently, right? So if I don't have an alternative, I can't say that this system is wrong because it's of no use, right? I should not be criticizing something unless I can give an alternative to it. And personally, I don't know. I mean, there should be more of because see, you're selecting officers, so you should examine what kind of a person they are more than what their knowledge is. So one suggestion I can give them is ki, have more of this personal examination, and maybe a little less of the academic examination that they have. That's the only thing I can. Now, secondly, once the IPS officers have come into the academy, during their training, they should be taught how to become a good human being instead of a knowledgeable officer, because if you're a good human being you will eventually turn out to be a good officer. So but the good thing is ki at NPA they're already doing this. They focus a lot on attitude building. They focus a lot on how you deal with the people, and how even if you don't want to take a particular way, it is good in the bigger picture, in the further pursuit of time, because it will lead to less efforts down the line. If you're rude right now to somebody, it won't help you build contacts, it won't help you build sources, it won't help you win the empathy of the people. And if you just put your ego aside for a moment and be nice to them, all of these can be done. So they actually already focus a lot on attitude building.
Great. I think that especially the training part sounds good and uh, more relevant than the examination part. But I also think that if you are not aware of an alternative of the system, that shouldn't stop you from saying that it's not the most efficient way to go about.
Exactly. It might not be most efficient, but I don't have any other alternative because, around 10 lakh people are sitting for an exam. Now, initially, I had come across these reviews. Ki people said there should be more detailed personal examination, more detailed interviews to ascertain what kind of a people they are by specialists and, people who can actually understand body language and human behavior, who can tell ki हाँ ये बंदा stress में कैसा behave करेगा. But the problem is you have to understand the scale also. Like there are almost for personal interviews, according to the present system, almost 10 lakh people fill the forms, 6 to 7 lakh sit for the prelims, for almost 15 to 20,000 sit for the mains, and finally interview ke liye almost 3,000 people come. Now, if you don't have this rigorous academic procedure, वो 7 lakh से 3,000 तुम कैसे लाओगे, right? Now, for that, you can't rely on using therapists. The scale is just so massive. You can't put all those people through these. And I mean, just how long the process would be,
Mhm.
right? So you need something which will filter down, cut down as much as possible, keeping the
Right.
good quality.
Yeah.
So that is why I said ki I can't think of an alternative which will work on such a big scale according to the time limit also, because every year the exam is happening.
This is a good segue to my next question, which was this all or nothing attitude with the UPSC system of exams. For example, I see a lot of really brilliant young people around me who spend like 4 years or so unemployed, just working, year after year, giving attempts. And then finally, when they don't make it, it's really upsetting, it's really depressing, and their own self-esteem, because un 4 saal mein, had they been working, even now there are opportunities in the development sector, the NGO sector, a lot of CSR, and a lot of ways to do impact, not necessarily through the UPSC route. And in those ways of working, you would have had your dignity and those kind of things. So there's a huge trade-off and a huge risk one takes, and a huge
Hmm.
sacrifice one has to make. So, what do you think about that way of? Do you think this is the only way to serve the world? Do you think there are other?
Not at all, not at all. In fact, it might just be more hyped than what it actually is. And I have, whenever people ask me for guidance, I always tell them you should have a plan B. You should not waste more than 3 years of your life in this exam, because this exam is a gamble. You have to understand. I mean, from my personal experience, I'll tell you, if your stars are right, you'll get into it. If your stars are not right, you will not get into it. As simple as that. Because there are so many people, so many intelligent people along with you competing. It's a very, very difficult examination, right? And I have seen myself, there were many people from my college who were gold medalists and they did not get in. It's not that they weren't intelligent enough, it's just that that wasn't their day. As simple as that, right? So I would always tell people कि अगर आपका 3 बार prelims नहीं निकल रहा है, for example, तो maybe it's time you should understand कि this is not the thing for me. And there are so many other ways in which you can do the same which you wanted to do through UPSC. So you should have, it shouldn't be like कि, as you said, कि all UPSC or nothing. It should not, it's not wise. In fact, that's an attitude we don't want in offices. We always want them to have alternatives in their mind. What if this doesn't work? What if this doesn't work? And second thing is कि UPSC recently started this, कि all those people who don't qualify the interview but have reached the interview stage, who have reached the interview stage but don't qualify in the final list, they can be accepted, and they'll be given preference in other PSU examinations. So that even if they did not make it to the final list in UPSC, they can have a source of employment from different PSUs, because they have already crossed the prelims and mains and everything. And maybe because of some small thing, they could not make it to the final list. So that's why they are being given preference in the PSUs.
Yeah.
Something like that is there. I'm not very sure exactly what it is, but that's there.
That's a good reform, because I think when you mentioned that there's so many people, India has so many people, so many young people who need jobs. And then if you have like 7 lakh people applying, then the pool keeps going smaller and smaller. What is a alternative? What is a better way to evaluate? So I think the whole reason we have such a big pool in the first place is also because of the prestige and because of parental pressure, and that
Yeah.
also the stability part, because
Hmm.
we here respect government jobs, कि okay, you have a certain way, a career progression which is pretty stable,
Hmm.
and that's a good thing. But in the new world, in the future of work, in the future of education, where we understand that stability is something that you'll have to struggle for, because this is a rapidly changing market, rapid industrialization, and there's so much adjustment you have to make now to remote work, now soon enough to like self-driving cars. It's massive, right? So the if this is my opinion, if we reduce the, not reducing the prestige, but if we give equal prestige to source of all other kinds of jobs, and what you ultimately pick, the attitude that you mentioned, that you make it yourself and you plan it for yourself and it's for you chart your path, and we inculcate more career counseling, more self-awareness, so that you ultimately pick what you want to do, and there is dignity in that because you chose it.
Hmm.
So if we just change this attitude around it, you also said that since the colonial times, things have changed. Now we're not pawns of the British कि उन्होंने through thousands of exams हमें choose किया है. This is a different market altogether, and I personally see the UPSC system going through a reform in a decade or so. It has to.
Definitely, it has to.
There's no other
Yeah.
way. And there are officers who have a family legacy कि हमारे बच्चे, हमारे parents सबने यही किया है. And
Hmm.
there's always these legacies in India that one has to
Yeah,
tackle.
yeah, yeah.
The democratization or something, there'll be resistance. In my
Yeah.
personal science class in college, my professor, he used to do some trainings for IAS officers apparently at some point. He's a expert political scientist. He's done a lot of papers of IAS officers and administrative kind of work. He somewhat mentioned that there may be a reform or something like this, but do you, because you don't see an alternative, what are some reforms that you have heard of within, like through your pals and your
See,
colleagues?
one very important reform which was being discussed a few years back was lateral entry, right? At these levels, at IPS and IS officers levels, we would have people from the private sector coming in who would do the work, because solely on the basis of the merit, because they have worked in that field initially and they have enough experience, so they can come and work. Now the thing is na ki I don't think that step was that much of a success, but that doesn't close doors for further reforms to happen, because as you said, and I completely agree, it's a very quite it's very fast, the change, the rapidity of the change is way too fast for us to comprehend. Even 10 years down the line, there may be a lot of reforms in the exam, and not just the exam, maybe the question patterns, maybe what they question people on, the content of that, all of that might change, because things that are relevant today might not be so relevant tomorrow, right? For example, if you just see the past 10 years paper, the focus on environment ecology, that has increased far more, because that is the issue which is more of importance now. We need officers who can do something about that, rather than who will just implement the policies which are currently underway. So small changes like that can happen, and maybe bigger changes will come forward. But if you ask me right now, I don't have much of an idea about it. And lateral entry also, I don't think it was very successful, because see, lateral entry, whichever person is coming in now, they'll be highly specialized, right? They have worked in that field and they'll be very specialized. Now the thing with the services is now there's this debate on generalization versus specialization. Should UPSC focus on generalization only, or should it go into specialization? That's why it's open for people from all graduation areas, and any graduate from any field can come in. Because see, we deal with people, be it the IS officers, IPS officers, they all deal with people. So, and people are varied. You will never have one solution for all these situations. You will never face one situation every day. Every morning you wake up, it's a different thing. So you can't be rigid in your approach. You can't have only a few ideas which you expect will work everywhere. You have to be very open to experimentation, very open to listening, very open to thinking out of the box. So I think that is why it was not that big of a success, because even now there's a lot of generalization. For example, as IPS officers, you go into different organizations for deputation. For example, intelligence and like IB, RAW, whatever, NIA, investigation, CBI is all are there. So we don't want. There might be some people who will be in one organization for their entire life. Now they become specialists in that areas. But if I have to, supervise the policing in a state, for example, who is an ideal DGP of a state? Now he would be someone who has an idea about all the things that come under his wing. He should be good at investigation. He should be good at, maintaining communal harmony. He should be good at bandobast. He should be good at all the other things which are there. That is why this generalization versus specialization, that is something we have
Yeah,
to
and
deal with.
I think even in the future of work and education, that's what people talk about a lot. A generalist versus a specialist, even in consulting, is a big question. Like, what's more valuable for you to know everything, or for you to know like deep, in-depth knowledge of one thing? That's like a 21st century challenge that we're really dealing with. I think we asked everything we needed to, and this was so fascinating that now I'm like, मुझे भी ये करना है. Oh my god! Like, although I don't want to give that exam, but I'm like, I really want to be on ground and like deal with these challenges head on. It's a combination of everything, social and political. Rituj, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that I'm genuinely very interested in this field now. I was pretty unaware of what's happening, especially in the education policing system and everything. And right now I'm very excited. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'm gonna explore this system even more, and my interest has been piqued a lot right now. So it's been a
I'm
great
very
talk,
happy I could
Riti.
do that.
So
Thank you so
great,
much.
Ritu,
great talk.
someone like you is doing this, because as you said, like you're the kinds who listen, you're the kinds who has such strong values of service. And I don't know if Rituj and I were expecting that necessarily, because we wanted to ask critical questions about the education system, and you're bang on. You're like, हाँ ये नहीं चलने वाला है, हमें भी पता है. Let's see what happens next. So we're so happy to speak to you, who's so progressive and so aware of these complexities.
Cool, great. All right. So great talking to you, and thank you so much for doing this, and thank you so much for taking out the time for the podcast. And I really enjoyed it, and I'm sure Anupriya did as well. So yeah.
I'll be hitting you up as well now, because for me this isn't over. This is like a conversation I think about a lot, so I might
Yeah,
DM you.
yeah, sure. Like DM me whenever you want, no issues.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks.
Okay, thank
Bye.
you. Take care. Bye.